If you want to write books for the purpose of making money, that starts right at the beginning. And you want to go down the publisher route, you have to start right at the beginning with the kind of book you're writing. You want to write a book that publishers are going to want. You want to write a book that's in a popular genre. You want to write a romance novel, or you want to write, you're going to want to write something that you're writing almost for the publishers more than for yourself in terms of the message you're delivering.
Hi friends, this is Read and Write with Natasha podcast. My name is Natasha Tynes and I'm an author and a journalist. In this channel, I talk about the writing life, review books, and interview authors. Hope you enjoy the journey. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Read and Write with Natasha. So today we have with us a children's author. His name is Neil Rosen, and he writes under the pen name Professor Stork. He's an award-winning author of over 6 children's books, including his latest release, a graphic novel titled Mila on Purpose. Neil writes picture books for children ages 3 to 7 and graphic novels for their older brothers and sisters. Grow Your Circle is the first book in the Mila and Purpose series, which encourages children to explore purpose and find their own sense of meaning as they mature. So, Neil, welcome to the show. So happy to have you here.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. It's a beautiful morning here in Oregon, so books come to mind.
Ah, nice. So, Neil, my first question to you is why children's book?
That's a great question. And I think it just starts with, I probably wrote my first book when I was 8 or 9 years old. I was one of those kids who had a bed full of books right under my covers. If I'd roll over, they'd fall out on the floor because I was just reading all the time. And I was into the Hardy Boy mystery book series. And I actually wrote one of the Hardy Boy books. And so I did a ton of writing when I was 10, 11, 12. And then after I graduated, went out into the world, went into business, did all the things people do. And I didn't write for probably 30, 40 years. I wrote a business book and a couple of other things. But then as my career went on and I got a little older, I got back to the writing and the children's books, and I love it. And I've written books for my grandchildren and I've written books for other children. But like you said, it's important. Part of it is because it's so important when you're writing books there's more to just writing a children's book than a children's book. And I think you've written some children's books, so you know what I'm talking about. You don't just want to write a book that's fun or cute. You want to write a book that has some meaning and has some purpose and books that matter to kids that can do things to help them grow up and to help them think and to help them feel good about themselves. So I really feel like I'm doing something that hopefully is helpful. And Mila on Purpose is really a great example. Mila on Purpose is a series, and the first book in the series is Grow Your Circle, #Grow Your Circle. And it's about the importance of having friends and the importance of having a circle and what a circle is. And Mila learns that when she goes through some interesting times at school where a new girl comes into class who doesn't look like her, and she wants to meet her and make friends with her, but she's nervous about it, and she gets help from all the people around her, and eventually the girl becomes her best friend, and her circle grows, and now it grows in ways it has never grown before. So that's a book that I think when kids read, it is something that they can take something away with and hopefully make them feel more comfortable in situations that maybe they weren't really comfortable in before that.
That's a very nice message, actually, especially, for example, where I live in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. in Montgomery County. Our schools are extremely diverse. So every kid is like half something, like half Japanese, half American, or kids with like immigrant parents. So, it's not homogeneous anymore. So it's nice to send that message that, it's okay to pick outside of your own and, introduce yourself to new cultures, new backgrounds. So it's a very, very nice and important message, especially during these times.
Oh boy, it is. And it's even more
Yeah,
than okay. You actually grow from it and you learn from it too. So it's not just okay. It's something you almost need to do, that you need to seek out, because that's how you're going to grow as a person.
correct, correct. That it enriches your life.
Yeah.
So that's really wonderful. So Neil, I just want to ask you a bit about your publishing journey. So I speak a lot with authors on this podcast. I think you're maybe in the episode number 50 on this podcast, which is great. I stuck with it that far,
Mhm.
and I'm enjoying it. And many of them tell me that the hardest part for them in their publishing journey is not actually writing the book, but finding an agent, publishing a book, all of that. So I want to hear about your publishing journey. Do you have an agent? If yes, how did you fund it? Did you self-publish? All of that. So if you can walk us through your publishing journey.
Sure. To this point, my publishing journey has been self-publishing.
Okay.
I've handled it all. I've done it all. I've hired editors. I've hired illustrators, other people that I work with on social media, and I'm trying to put together the whole package. And my real goal over the last few years has just been to really grow as a writer and really understand who I am as a writer and the messages that I want to deliver as a writer and how I want to deliver them. And I've made a lot of growth that way. I've focused more on that than looking for an agent or looking for a publisher at this point
Okay.
in time. I have a whole bunch of new books coming out, and I'm feeling, if you've written, you think your first book is great until you write your second book.
Yeah.
And then you see how much better it is, and then you write your fourth
Yeah.
book. Well, now I'm
Yeah.
closing in on like a dozen books. And so I'm getting very comfortable with who I am and what I'm delivering and stuff like that. I have some really interesting new books coming out. And so I haven't really decided going forward what I was going to do, but I found that writing incredibly time consuming, even children's books. I think sometimes it's probably harder to write a 32-page children's book than it is to write a 300-page novel, because every word is so important.
Every word matters. Yeah. Have you ever tried going the traditional route?
I haven't yet. No. I've thought about it, but at this point, I haven't yet tried to do that. And part of it is also because when you go the traditional route, there are a couple of things about it. I've learned a lot about it. I've looked into it, but there are a few things about it that bothered me. One is that you have, you're a 2-year. It'd probably take you a year to get an agent or publisher, and then 2 years after that before anything gets published. So you're doing this far away, and a lot of the stuff I write, like Me Learn Purpose, I think is sort of timely, and that would be something I'd have to change. I'd have to try to move from timely to timeless, which maybe you can do which I'm doing, by the way, with some of my new books. Another problem is if you write, even if you publish, you're still responsible for doing the social media marketing and the outreach and all of that stuff. It's not like you get a publisher and all of a sudden, okay, you have a publisher, you don't have to worry about that anymore. You're still doing all of that anyway. So, for those reasons, I really haven't looked at it.
Okay. So you said you've done it all. And I actually self-published my first novel. For me, I love the fact I had actually a publisher before, but then I took my rights back and I self-published it for many reasons. But I love the fact that I have control over everything, the pricing, I look at the reports, the daily reports. I can decide to put it for free on KDP Unlimited, all of that. This is all within me. But what I realized is it's a lot of money up front to put, and so far I'm still in the hole, right? Because you pay for the editor, all of that, and for some authors it will probably be too expensive to afford it. And for me, like now thinking to do another self-publish another book, I also need to come up with I don't know, $5,000 to do that. And, I have bills to pay. I have 3 children, I'm still paying a mortgage. Like it's too much financial responsibility. And what is your advice for someone who really wants to get published, cannot get a traditional publisher, and coming up with, thousands of dollars is not an option either? So what do we do in this case?
Well, I think you're talking about really two totally different things here. One
Okay.
thing is why are you writing? Okay. If you
Okay.
want to write books for the purpose of making money, that starts right at the beginning. And you want to go down the publisher route, you have to start right at the beginning with the kind of book you're writing. You want to
Okay.
write a book that publishers are going to want. You want to write a book that's in a popular genre. You want to write a romance novel, or you want to write, you're going to want to write something that you're writing almost for the publishers more than for yourself in terms of the message you're delivering. So it really starts right back there. I've always, like I said, if you write a romance novel, you'll probably have very little problem getting a publisher. If you want to write, even with children's books, what are the hot kinds of children's books that are really being written now? A lot of graphic novels for teenagers and things like that. If that's so, you're writing for the market rather than writing for yourself. So it's two totally different routes to go down. With self-publishing, I don't know if you'll ever make money. I don't know. It costs money. I don't know if I'll ever make money. You write enough books, and maybe then you're getting a little money from each book as it goes along, and you're trying to build it that way. But a lot of people I know who have published with publishers don't make money either. Sometimes they get an advance to write the book, which is nice, but they don't really make it's difficult. I mean, there are how many millions of books that come out every year, and how many become bestsellers. And I've actually had two books that have come out and have been bestsellers out of the gate, and you still don't make much money. They're bestsellers, and that's a big deal for a month or two, and then after that, you got to get back to it.
Why do you write?
I write. Well, I was actually I had my own kids. I had 3 kids, and now I have 5 grandchildren. And I was a teacher for a dozen years, teaching elementary school kids. And I really, for the most part, think that it is really important for young children to be reading stuff that's going to get this world into a better place. And I know that sounds real haughty and crazy, but that really is why I write. I want children to have stuff to read that's going to impact their lives and the lives of people around them. That's going to put them on a mission. That's going to make them want to take care of the earth we live in. That's going to make them want to be friendly and be open and be kind and be generous and things like that, because that's eventually how the world will change.
So the message is children's book will change the world. Can we adopt this mantra? Children's
books with a purpose, really. I mean, they really are and they're all about friendliness. They really are all about purpose. They're about leadership, developing your leadership skills and giving good examples of leadership and things like that. I've started a family book club. And the family, nice. And so people join my family book club. It's free, and every month I send out books for different age groups to read. And with the books, I send out questions that they should ask the kids. And it's built on four basic tenets. And one is to get children reading.
Okay.
The other is to get children reading books that matter, books that have some meaning and some purpose. The third thing is to read with children, which parents do. They read to children when they're very young. They start to read with them when they're a little bit older and learning to read themselves. And then after that, they sort of let the kids read on their own. And it's really important for parents to continue to read, not every book, but once a month, read a book with a kid. And then the fourth piece of it is to then have a conversation about the book. So teach kids how to read. They learn how to read. Teach them how to choose books that are meaningful. So they're reading books that are meaningful. Read the books with them. And even if you have a teenager who's reading a graphic novel, there's no reason a parent can't read that same graphic novel, not with the kid at the time, but just read the novel and then have conversations with the kids about the book, which will help you. It does so many great things. It shows kids that you love reading and that's really important to you and part of your life. And it's a great way to communicate with them and take their temperature and it's a nice mental health checkup. And it's also just a reading checkup where you can get a feel for how well your kids are understanding what they're reading and also see the types of things they're reading, because that'll affect them. So I believe that's really important from the youngest age all the way up till at least they get to high school.
Yeah, I mean, I have a parenting question for you, since you're an experienced parent and have grandchildren. So my kids used to read. I used to read to them when they were younger, and then they used to read, and now they just stopped reading when they're teenagers. And I keep telling them, and they no, reading is cringe. I don't want to read. Reading is they think reading is not cool, and they're just stopped reading. And we're always fighting over stop looking at your device, go read the book, and it's just a constant battle. And they, sadly, they're not reading these days. So how can I solve this?
What grade? How old are they?
I have the older one. I have 3 kids. The youngest is 6. I read to him. He's fine. But the oldest are twins. They're 12.
And if you take them to the library or something, they don't see any books they want to pick out, or go to a bookstore or get them a graphic novel?
They used to, but this year they're resistant. I was like, oh, let's go to the library. No, let's go to Barnes and Noble. No. And they're kind of this rebellious teenage years.
Wow.
Where,
and they're not reading. They're not reading on their iPads either.
No.
Well, I'd get them a book for their birthday. I'd get them a couple of graphic novels, I would look up what books are really popular with 12-year-olds. They're boys, with 12-year-old boys. And I'd get them a book, and I'd get myself a copy. And I'd tell them, I'm going to read this. Let's read this. And then let's sit down and talk about it and see if you're able to have a little bit of an impact that way, because sometimes that'll work.
Yeah. Or maybe, shall I start a reward system for them? If you read this, you shall I bribe them? Or no? I mean, do I have to go to that route? I'll give you $5 for
I don't think so, because I'm sure they have friends who are reading. 12-year-old kids these days are reading a lot. I have a granddaughter who's 12. I have a grandson who's 13, and they read a lot. And they're reading all these Harry Potter types of things. And
they already finished them.
Right. So there are others. So there's a whole bunch that come after them. I could actually get you some names of some books. I'll check with my grandson. I'll get you some names of books, because kids that age are reading these books. They're popular.
Yeah.
Percy
Jackson.
Okay. How are they doing in school? Well?
Good, yeah. Oh, yeah, A's. Mostly A's, yeah.
Okay. Do they have a lot of reading that they have to do for school?
They do. Yeah, they have one of them is in the gifted and talented program, so they have to do a lot of reading.
So that may be part of it. That may be worth thinking about it. Did they read over the summer or no?
No, that's the sad part. And I'm reading all the time. They see me read. I have books all over the house.
Yeah.
So, but maybe it's just a phase. We'll see.
Right. It might just pass.
Yeah.
It might
let's
just
hope
pass.
so.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure. With a mother like you and reading all the time with all the books in the house, that they will find it interesting. What are they? The one other thing you might really consider is, what are they really interested in? Because you might be able to get a book about.
That's true. Now their interests change. My son now is obsessed with basketball, so he's been actually reading books about basketball legends, like Michael Jordan and LeBron James, and that's the book that I've seen. Yeah. But I think he kind of finished them, and now he just wants to play basketball. So that's what the phase he is in right now.
Well, that's not bad, because if he got a book like Air, which is a book about Michael Jordan or something like that, and read that, and you read it, you could have a nice conversation about it. I mean, it really does have an impact. It really does make a difference. It's worth you reading one of the books. And it doesn't have to be anything really formal, even when you're driving them somewhere in the car or doing something, to just talk about, I read that book, and,
What's the book called? Air?
Air.
Okay. Maybe I'll buy it for him and we can talk.
Yeah, it's about It's about how Michael Jordan, it's about Nike and how Michael Jordan got involved with Nike and how the Air shoes came into being and how he got so rich and everything. So, but I'm just saying any book like that, but you read it too. And then you'd be surprised if you driving home from school one day and you just bring up something, man, I read this book and I was really surprised that this happens. Might start a whole conversation there.
That's a good idea. Okay, so I want to shift gears a bit and talk about marketing your books. So you mentioned that even if you're traditionally published, you have to hustle, right? You have to market your books, you have to go on podcasts, you have to use social media. So what tactics have you been using and what worked for you and what didn't work? Where did you get the most success in terms of selling your books?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, and where I've had the most success and probably where most authors have the most success, is really planning out and doing a good book launch where you really launch your book, bring people together, give it at a reduced price, offer something for people who will write reviews. I've gotten 90 to 100 reviews on different books. And I think that's probably, it's a part people talk about, Bus, but it's also the easiest part. Because you build your following, you have your podcast, you have people who follow you. And at that one point in time, the way Amazon works and the way some of these others work, that's how you become a bestseller. So if you can sell 100 books in one day and get 30 or 40 or 50 of those people to review that book, then all of a sudden you have a book, a best-selling book on Amazon or on Ingram, which I've had them there too. Not a New York Times. That I think you have to go traditional for at this point in time. But so you get that best-selling book, and then you try to leverage that to best-selling book. But there's no, other than after that book launch, it's just like pounding away. It's just like social media, it's Reels, it's Instagram, it's Twitter, it's whatever you're using, it's podcasts, it's the kind of things you're doing. And it just is like drip, 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 drip. So it also does come back to the type of books you write. I have a new series that's going to be coming out more next spring, which to me is more of something that's more of a highly marketable kind of thing. At least I'm trying to. I'm seeing it. I'm writing a book it's a series of books called Can You Read Nature? And these books are meant to be read outdoors. And each book, one of the books is Can You Read the Daylight Sky? And another is Can You Read a Pond or a Flower Garden? And there's one, Can You Read Arches National Park? And the idea is to try to get kids off their screens, out of the house, into nature, to look at different things, but also fun books, and they're rhyming books, and they're fun books to do. But I think, like, Can You Read the National Parks is something that could be sold at national parks. And you also, have you worked on getting distribution for your books?
No. So do you hire a distributor?
That's something I'm working on. You don't hire, there are distributors that work with self-publishing. That's one of the things I'm working on now. I mean, Ingram Spark is a distributor.
It's one of them. Yeah.
They're a distributor. Them, so you can use them. It doesn't cost anything. But there are other distributors that focus on different types of books depending on the market you're in. Some distributors just focus on books by women authors. Some distributors focus on certain genres or children's books or that kind of thing, or sports or religious books.
But how do they make money if you don't pay them? They make money off the sale.
They make money when they sell the books. They're actually going to take your books to bookstores, take your books to museums, take your books to galleries, wherever wherever books are sold, if they're children's books, and they make money by selling the books. So they're like your middleman. So
all I have to do is just email them or contact them and tell them, here is my book, sell it for me.
Get online. You can get online. You can go to Reedsy or you can go to Ingram and you can look up a book of distributors of children's books, if it's children's books you're doing or whatever. And I'm working on that. I do not have one yet, but I have started to reach out to them and I've had some interest. So I'm looking to do that because that can make a big difference. For my books, they distribute to schools, that kind of thing. So I'm looking
And then they
for
take a cut of the sale of each book.
exactly. But they do
I like
everything.
that.
They do everything. They go out and they market, they sell. So you have to make an outlay of some money because you have to send them books. So you'll send
Okay.
them, let's say you'll send them 50 books. And so they
Okay.
have the books and they ship them and they'll do everything with that. And then they tell you when they need more. So
Okay. That's a
definitely
good idea. I'm
distributor
gonna
is
write this down, yeah.
definitely a way to go. And there are quite a lot of them out there, big ones, small ones,
That's
definitely
good to
worth
know.
looking into.
So, Neil, have you been doing your own social media, or do you hire help? It's a lot
No,
of
I
work.
have I have help that I work with, a great team that I've worked with for about a year and a half now, or a little more, and they're really
Good.
good. And
Yeah, because I looked at your visuals; they're really good. Like
yeah,
the design, the media kit, like it's really like top notch. So good
it
for
is great.
you.
They're great,
Yeah, it is good.
and the
Yeah,
big thing they do that's really important because you do this is like your podcast. You said you were
yeah,
your 50th podcast, and you keep doing it.
yeah.
It's all about this consistency. If I were to do
Correct.
my
Yeah,
own social media, I would do 50 things one day and then wait 3 months and do 30.
yeah.
Whereas now it's very consistent all the time, constantly going out with new books and new launches. So you slowly build your brand recognition and your name recognition and your book recognition. But that's why I hired somebody. It's to make sure it's happening all the time.
Good for you. And what is your next project? I think you mentioned it briefly. If you can tell us
I
a
have
bit
two.
more about
I have two projects. Well, I actually have two books that are launching in the next 6 weeks or so. One is a second book in a series called Skywatch, which is about
Okay.
a team of cloud heroes that solve environmental problems. So the
Okay.
first book was about plastic in the oceans, and the second book is about strip mining.
Okay.
And then I have a second book in a series called about Silas, which is a rhyming book and really more of a romp. And it's called Silas the Zoo and a Jumbo Debut. And
Okay.
it's about a boy who goes to the zoo and he watches all the animals. And then when he gets to the hippopotamus, he just runs right by without watching him at all. And the hippopotamus gets really mad at him and says, you watch the lions, you laugh at the monkeys, but me, you just run by. What's the matter with you? Why don't you spend any time watching me? And he goes, well, you don't do anything. You're just lying there. Why should I sit and watch it? They have this great conversation. So it's
He
so that's
offended the hippopotamus. Yeah.
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is
So
very cool.
and the
Yeah.
two new books, one is this series called Can You Read Nature? Which is again,
Okay.
it's a rhyming series, but this is nonfiction. This is a nonfiction series. Can You Read
Okay.
Nature? Where you learn all about flower gardens and ponds and things like that. And then I also have a book launching next summer, which is a self-help book for parents
Yeah.
called Rediscovering the Village. And it's a book on education and how to help your children perform better in school and how to develop a lifelong love of learning. And it's all strategies from the 1960s and 70s.
Wow, fun.
Yeah. And the book was written originally back in the 1960s and 70s. I wrote it with another teacher. And we've updated it and we're launching it next summer. And I think that's going to be a really exciting book for parents to use. There's like 50 different strategies in there to help your kids develop a lifelong love of learning.
That's fun. So you're busy.
Because it's hard, most people don't realize it. We didn't even realize it. We were doing it one day, and it's like it's amazing how times today are so similar to what they were back then. You think things
Yeah.
change so much, and then you look at it, and they really haven't changed at all. We had the Cold War with Russia and the nuclear war going on, and we had computers were just starting. They were just coming out. But back then, people were totally freaked out about how much time their kids were spending on television, watching television. They were totally freaked out about it, as bad as it is today. So you're saying I can't get my kids off the screens? Well, that's exactly what they were saying back then, but it was television screens because that's when televisions first started. And the kids
Okay.
wouldn't leave their television. So there was so much back then that's similar. And it's
Interesting. Yeah.
it's interesting.
You're
And what
busy.
about you? How many children's books have you written?
I only have one. I'm
Okay.
still trying to find a publisher and all of that. But I might just self-publish. But I published one book and I have maybe 4 others that waiting for them to see the
Children's
light of
books
day.
or children's books?
No, the one that I published is an adult book. It's a murder mystery. Set between the US and the Middle East, between Jordan, where I was born. So it goes back and forth between Jordan and the US. So yeah, I'll
And
send
you published it you published it traditionally?
the first edition, yeah, with a small press. Then eventually I decided to take my rights back and I self-published it. And I'm much happier being in charge of it, honestly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have more control. And it's when you have small press, I feel you might as well self-publish. I think,
Right.
Yeah, especially for someone like me who's already on social media. I'm already doing my marketing stuff, so I might as well just self-publish. It makes more sense, at least for me, sense to having more control, and even whatever small financial gain I get from it, I can even be in control of that. So yeah.
Do you manage to have, you manage to get a continuous small drip of sales through?
Correct. Yeah, I do. But that's not where my main income comes. Most of my income comes from writing content to brands. So I'm a writer and I do ghostwriting as well. So I'm a writer for hire. So ghostwriting, I write newsletters, I write blogs,
Great.
I publish in publications. That's where my main income, and the creative writing brings some income, but you cannot raise a family on that. So
no, you can't. The other thing to consider, though, is for writers to consider. The one thing I have found successful, which I'm doing more of now, is when you write books in a series. That's very helpful.
Yeah. That's actually my nakas. But I have one in the series.
Yeah,
and,
if you were to write a second murder mystery with the same characters, that really is very helpful, because people who buy the second one, if they like it, will then buy the first one, and people who have bought the first one will buy the second one. So you build your audience by having a series.
Yeah, my next book is part of a 3-book series, and I'm talking with an agent now, so wish me luck.
Okay. What kind of series is it?
It's speculative fiction, which is like urban fantasy, which is, you have a normal suburban setting, but something weird happens in the urban setting. Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
That's the kind of books I like. So there is not lots of word building, but there's always a mysterious element to it, like a magical element to it.
And what age group? Is it for adults or is it
adults? Yeah, adults.
Nice. That sounds great. That sounds like great fun.
Yeah, we'll see. So, Neil, any last thoughts or advice or tips for aspiring authors who want to get into the world of publishing, especially publishing children's books?
Yeah, I think they have to go into it with a plan, understand what they want to do, why they're writing, like you've said before. And, I can write a children's book in a week, and it takes me a year to edit it. So it's the work comes in, you spit it out, and it just comes out, and then you got to really do the work. If you want to write books that are commercial, then you really have to understand the market and learn more about the book market and what's commercial and what publishers are looking for, and then write books specifically to meet those things. If you want to write yourself, make sure you have another job.
Correct. So, Neil, how can people get in touch with you? How can they reach you? How can they get your books? All of that.
All they have to do is go to my website, which is Stork, STORK.com. www.profstork.com.
And
that's
on
my
social
website
media as well. The same username on social media.
Yeah. Yep. And it's at Professor Stork. And there's my blog is up on the website. There's lots of free stuff up on the website. I give free coloring books with all my books, so people can go on and just get the free coloring pages and things like that, and get to see what's coming out. And they can reach out to me there if they'd like to, if they have any questions.
I'll get it for my 6-year-old. He loves it.
Yes, absolutely. Do that.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Stock.
Thank you,
will...
Natasha. You have a great day. Enjoy
You
it
too.
down there in Maryland. Hope you have beautiful weather.
You too. Thank you. And for anyone who is listening or watching, thank you for joining us today. And until we meet again. Thank you for tuning in to Read and Write with Natasha. I'm your host, Natasha Tynes. If today's episode inspired you in any way, please take the time to review the podcast. Remember to subscribe and share this podcast with fellow book lovers. Until next time, happy reading, happy writing.